All right. Well, welcome to today's webinar. To begin this webinar, we're going to be working in the library as well as templates because they interact with each other. Think of the templates as the structure, the layout of all the different, the order and things like that of all the different
Suzie,
systems. Oh, yep,
quick question. Is this being
sure.
recorded?
It is. Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure because I want to send it to someone else that also uses this.
Okay, cool. Yay. Awesome. Well, that's great. So yes, think of the templates section. That will be basically the order of all your different systems that you would like it to be in. And then the contents within that, the inspection items. It's more like what inspection items show for that template. The library, that will hold, it looks very similar to the template, but it actually contains the comments. So any comment that has to do with an inspection item, you'll have the comments in there, but then you also have the details. So like the styles and material options, disclaimers, you can also add there, and you create them there. So think of the library as like the contents, or somebody was referring to it as the foundation. I like to think of the template as just like the setup, the layout, the structure. To begin, I'm going to start over here on the left-hand side and I'll click on templates. And I encourage you to do the same. Basically here, I just have one residential template as the default. The residential default, that's just what comes with HomeGauge. Everybody has it. And what we'll do is we'll create a new template. So that one stays the same and we're not trying to modify it. And we'll go up here to click Add Inspection Template, and then we'll give it a name. You get a choice to create it from the default, which that's what the only option we have right now. But as you build more out, you can create a copy from an existing as well. So I'll click Add at the bottom, and there it is. While we're on this page, I'll point out just a few things. So over here on the right, you've got the three dots there. You can set a certain template as the default, rename it, delete it, things like that. All right, so next we'll go and click into the practice webinar template and do a few things here first. In the top part of the template, we'll start with the descriptions. So if I click on that, that will be the beginning of the report, just the regular property descriptions. Super easy to explain this. I won't spend tons of time here. You'll have all the different descriptions that are available to you in the library. Now, you don't have to have all of them appear in this template, and you can quickly just kind of customize this template to show what you would like it to show by just selecting the hide icon. And yeah, so you can clean this up, have it appear how you would like it to appear, and then always know that you can go down here to hidden descriptions and add things back if you would like to. Once you have everything kind of added here, just click done. The next would be the disclaimer. So this is full report, whole property disclaimers. So think of things like your standards of practice would go here. When we get it into the library, you can customize that and you can add your own and things like that. I will say that you can also do this while working in a report. So right now we are just working, outside of the report. We're in templates, but you can also do this while you're actually in a report as well. Here, if you don't want to see all these different disclaimers, because there are quite a few, and you can just click hide. You can click show more to see what the full sentence shows.
Suzie,
Yes.
Darren. So in following along with you, I noticed something that might be helpful to those who have already made a template or have at least adjusted the original template to
Okay.
customize it. When you create a new template, let me go back to that screen. So when you add inspection template, create from default company defaults, that actually doesn't create from it creates from your company defaults, not mine. So if I go to my original residential default, and I just did this, and then duplicate it and save it under a new name, any changes I have made stay in that new template.
Got it. Got
So,
it.
so the residential default one actually has everything that you put in there from the beginning. All my
Mhm.
tweaks and changes were lost when I created a new template from that. But by duplicating that and then calling it something else and then making my new template off of that, it actually saved everything that I had already changed, or like I've got some descriptors that I removed, all those things were gone. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
okay. What I'm understanding is that if you have a template, so let's pretend that I've already gone into
So
residential and I've
so go in
customized
there
things.
and
Mhm,
just go up to descriptions and let's
mhm.
change something. So we're going to turn off number of stories, hide that,
Okay, okay.
and just hit done. So now if you create a new test template,
So,
so just create, if you create from company defaults, it's going to bring that number of stories back in.
oh, got it, got it. Okay, I see what you're saying. So if we went add and we'll go back to the new test, and if we go there, it should. Okay,
It's
I
going to
saw that. Yep,
your number of
that
stories
number.
is still there. So
Okay,
to avoid that, to retain the changes you make, you need to take that residential default and duplicate it and put your own name on it.
got it. So basically, residential default, from what I'm understanding and what I've just witnessed, and I don't know exactly how. Yeah, create from company default, and that is creating from the
Okay,
HomeGauge
so wait a second.
default.
Wait a second.
And the residential default, that is the one that I personally did want to copy. And if you've been using WebWriter and haven't created a new template yet, you would want to copy, um, this template here. That's yours, and give it a new name. So new name would be my own company template, not HG default. So it's super clear. And then click add. And let's just check that out here. So if we click into that, we hopefully, yep, we see the 11 descriptions. So thank you, Darren, for chiming in. That is super handy info.
That are new to this and are going to make a template, they're probably going to go into that default template, adjust it the way they want it, and then save it on duplicate and save under your own name. And then any
Mhm.
additional templates you make would copy that initial format.
Yeah, and that's a good. I mean, some people might want to keep whatever the home gauge default is, but if you just want to go forth and basically take this residential one, and what you're saying is just kind of like rename it. So you can rename it your company name. If I move forward beyond that, we would still do the same process.
Right. So what I just did,
I'm going to clean some of
and
this up.
this is the first time. So I did go in and customize and make my own template, but I have not made
Mhm.
additional templates, which I do plan on doing, like for pre-drywall. I'll make a template for that. But what I did was I just changed from your residential one, made duplicate just like you did. Then I set that to my company name and I set that as default. Templates that I make, I will make with my company default one, if that makes any sense.
Does, because it makes sense, but
So I'm not touching that residential one that was the default, the one you just changed the name on it,
yeah, you're just never
because I have a
touching that
feeling
one.
I have a feeling if I go back and duplicate that, it's just going to import all the original stuff again.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing in the sense of when you click add inspection template, create from company defaults, it is going to create from the home gauge company defaults.
Yes.
So just know that. I think in the most simplest form, create from company defaults is the home gauge company defaults. Yes, that'd be great, because it is a little confusing, because you'd think that your default would be this right here, the one that says default in parentheses. And so this one has 11. I'm just going to double check one more time, just in case something, like when I changed things and I set this as default, if something changed. So I'm just going through the workflow again. No, because this is what I would think would do that. Okay. Oh, yeah. And it went back to 12. Okay. So there we go. We figured it out. Until further notice, everybody, when you're creating a new template and you click the plus sign, if you have basically, if you've never used HomeGauge, you don't really have to worry at this point, but any future templates that you want to create, when it says create from company defaults, know that that's the HomeGauge default, and you will want to create from an existing template like so. New number 2, and this one should have just 11. All right. Hopefully that helped everybody. It helped me out. So thank you, Darren. And hopefully it wasn't super confusing and we're able to dial in that just remember when you click add company defaults, probably don't choose that one. Give it a name and choose copy existing template. And even if the existing template says residential default, still copy it. That's what I'm getting. I'm
Yes,
going to go ahead.
and
Okay, cool.
template work has to be done from a browser.
Yes, that is true. That is true. It
You
is
can do it
not
on an iPad or tablet, but it's got to be in the browser. Someone just asked that question.
exactly. Library stuff, comments and things can be done on the app itself, but yeah, template modification. So I'm just deleting all these, not the default, but just to kind of get back to square one here. I'll go in, I'll click add, I'll give it a name, correct. And this is the one we'll work in, copy existing. And again, if your only existing says residential default, still do this workflow. Just keep going. And there we go. We've got our template, and we'll just click into that and start just with some general reordering of your systems. And basically, this is something a lot of folks might want to just start doing, before diving into their library. But if you click on reorder systems, you'll have a side menu here, and it's pretty easy to do. So let's say that, when I am starting out with an inspection, I want to start with the landscaping, hardscaping first, and then I want to move to the roof, and then I'll do the building exterior and the balconies and porches. So it's pretty easy. Just click and drag where you would like your different systems to go. You can't quite delete anything here. If you've not used WebWriter before, just know that if you don't fill out a certain system, like let's say pool hot tub, it's not going to show in the report. And this area, you can reorder everything, but you can't quite delete an actual system here. I'll just reorder a few other things to what I feel like would be good for me. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And then whenever you're done, just click done. You can always go back in and move things around whenever you feel like it. So the next thing that I'll show you is when we go into each system, you'll have all your different inspection items here.
Suzie?
And this is, yeah.
Sorry, when are we going to be able to add and rename systems?
I don't know the answer to adding and renaming systems. I don't know the answer to that one. I can write it down and I can get back to you by email or something like that.
I just asked, what would you be interested in adding?
Well, right now I'm using Companion, and that just is not the layout. When I thought that we were going to be able to upload existing templates from our Companion to WebWriter, and this is not the format. This is not the outline that we use in our.
Right.
We just like to change it up a little. That's all.
Right. So there is an other category in here where you can add items that wouldn't fall into these categories, and you can add items throughout. So I was just asking that question, but
Like under General.
yes. So under general, you could add items, but you could also add, for instance, I have a category just for sliding doors instead of just calling it an exterior door. And then you can create that item and it falls into your template, and you can set it up so it's always there, and then create concerns for that, and they always show up. So if I go to sliding door and I find the track's bad, or the wheels are bad, or all those concerns are already there, and I don't have to. The reason I separate it is I don't want 40,000 concerns under exterior door. So by creating some multiple items, it separates the concerns. So we have specific concerns to a specific item without having a bunch jumbled together under one general item, if that makes sense. The point of what I was trying to make is there is ways to customize this and create items. And then under the general, you could, if there's another system, I mean, you can't change general to a new system, but you could add items under there that you may not see that don't fall into these existing systems.
I mean, that's a great use for general. So you know, I honestly was wondering, like, what do we use general for? You know, I didn't really know a use case for that. And so that's great because that's a wonderful use case for general. But yes, you can definitely add different items here, and you can rename these as well. So we'll get into that. But the actual names of the systems, the main, you know, titles here, you can't name them at this time.
It's like one of our systems is like kitchen. Like, you know, we have that as a separate component.
Mm-hmm.
We don't label it as appliance, but obviously, you know, we include countertops, ceilings and walls, windows, all that. So there's no kitchen here. That's screwing up some of our guys.
And we'll get into more about the different kind of locations, room components, you know, and maybe it'll bring some clarity on how to get this to be customized to your liking. So kitchen, it's still, a lot of those elements fall into the room components, and you can also go in and rename those room components if you want to specifically. So and it's different. It's not going to match up with classic, like the HomeGauge desktop. It's just not built the same way. So there's certain things that it can't quite do, and it's not like apples to apples. But hopefully this will show you ways that you can think outside the box and change things. It's really not too limiting. It's just like this part right here. These main headers are, but then you can go into, you know, room components, and you can build out different things there. Appliances, they do live here. Technically, like, I would use it because it's already built out and it just saves me some time. But if you really wanted to, you could add those different appliances closer to kitchen. But I feel like it just wouldn't make sense. I feel like everybody would want it to be here, but you can move appliances. So you can go to reorder, and let's see here, appliances, I can move right below room component. So it's just right next to it and in a little bit more of a logical spot. So, all right. So Jim, thank you for that feedback though. And that is, you know, I've heard that as well. And I definitely feel the same way. And I would like to be able to change everything as well.
So just to go back to what Jim was saying about the kitchen, I was a desktop user. Then I switched to the predecessor of this web writer and then ended up on the web writer. But the room by room process, and it seems like you're at least doing a room by room with just the kitchen and then maybe the rest of it. It really messed with my head to change from that style to this style. But once I grasped this, I find it so much faster not have to figuring out laying out the house and naming the rooms, be able to say, well, this component was a problem and it was in this room. Well, what are we going to call that room? I don't have to do that now, with the exception of the issues. So when you're going room by room, you're listing all those rooms in the house, whether there's an issue in it or not. Doing it system by system, I only have to identify the room that the issue is found in, if that makes sense. So if you got 4 bedrooms, I only have to say, this is the rear right bedroom that this outlet doesn't work, and I'll annotate that in the picture instead of having to break out every room in the house.
Thank you.
It is definitely a workflow change, and I understand where it messes with your mind. It did me too. But once I got into this, it was just so much faster and simpler to move through a house.
There you go. Thank you, Darren, for that insight. That's great. That's great. Hopefully that has helped out a bunch of folks. I know it just helps me kind of wrap my head around things as well. I know there's tons of inspectors that are, you know, diehard system by system, so it might be able to be a little bit easier for them to jump into this. But yeah, the room by room, and I love that it's just faster that way, and it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, Darren. Customizing this a little further here. So let's say that you're in the roof, and let's say in the roof system, maybe you're somebody who likes to have roof drainage systems right there. You're, you know, on top of a ladder and you're used to it like that. You don't see it here. Typically in this kind of default template, I believe roof drainage systems might be located in the building exterior. Yeah, so right here by downspouts and gutters, right? But maybe you really like it in roof, and that's great. So you can actually add that here. So you basically under roof, we can go to add item. And this is where you basically will add the inspection item, but you don't build out the inside, the contents of it here. You just give the title of the inspection item. So I will click into here, and it gives me some options to choose from, which basically will help you speed up the process of this. So if I, choose roof flashing, it will copy any descriptions that come with roof flashing to start that off. Same with roof materials. So it kind of starts you off with some of those basic. But for this, I'm just going to go to other roof. And this might be something a lot of people will do. They'll go to like other roof, create a new item this way, unless there's something that really does match, which, might be the case as well. Then you would, choose a different item type. So roof drainage systems. All right, so I've added that, and I'll click add, and it will get added here. I'll go back when we're working into the library, and that's where I'll go in and build out the styles and materials or the details. For instance, if I'm here under roof materials, for example, you'll see these 3 icons across here, and they each have a number. So I know roof materials will have 2 details, 2 style and material type items to fill out. Roof material has 27 comments and 0 limitation statements or disclaimers. So, for example, I'll click on the I there, and it brings up to show me the different descriptions that are available that's already built in. And again, like we could in the descriptions of the property, all you have to do is just simply hide if you don't want to see anything like that in this particular template. You can't add to your descriptions here. That's contents. So that's part of the library. I've added a new item here, and you can just keep adding new items. You can go over here and you can delete items or rename them. Maybe I don't want roof material called roof material, and I want it to be called roof coverings. I can change the name however I like. And you'll also notice one other thing too, that some folks have made a comment where they want to actually reorder the inspection items here. You can always do kind of things like this. Right now, you can't reorder these, maybe in the future, but as it is right now, if you really want to reorder the inspection items within, you can click edit, and you can just, call it number 1. You can call this one number 2, and it will, fall into whatever order you are putting it in, and it will stay that way. So that's just a little workaround for folks that really want to put their inspection items in a certain order that they're used to, which will help them speed up with things.
So I was just watching what you did,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to think through that process. But one of the things that I liked about previous software I was using is in the report, everything was numbered. So I could say, go to section 5.1, or
Mhm.
this concern over here with um, not enough ventilation in the crawl space. And then in the crawl space, we've got fungal growth in the crawl space. I could connect those two, and in the concern, the comment, I could say, hey, this 1.5 connects to 6.2. Anyways, you numbering these might be a good way to be able to do that, because right now that's not implemented in the reports, but this might be a good way to say the drainage issue in their exterior, uh, building exterior connects with landscaping, hardscaping, number 3 or something like that. So going through and doing that I'm just thinking that might be helpful for those of you who use that in your reporting. It's something I've missed.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for sharing. I do think that also it could be helpful too when communicating just over the phone with an agent or a buyer. If they call you
Absolutely.
later on, yeah, and it's just very straightforward. It's like roof number
Yes.
3, something. I will, and it's super easy to do. So I'm in here and I click edit, and I would suggest doing the numbering because I was playing around with this and I numbered stuff, and then I was like, oh wait, but then I also want to add this item in here, and I ended up having to number several times. So wait for the numbering until you have kind of your items kind of set up that you know you want.
So let
What
me also
else?
point out, like, so we don't have a lot of skylights around where I'm at.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of things that are default in this form that are not typical during an inspection where I'm at. I'm in South Carolina. Um, so under template, I'll remove that.
Hmm.
So if you hit, I see you go ahead and
So,
save that and then go back out, point out that, so deleting that right there removes it from my default report. So when I'm on site, I don't want all these items. Again, I'm trying to streamline. I don't want to be digging through a bunch of things to find what I need. So I delete the things that are uncommon. But when
mhm.
you pull your report up in the app, you can add it anytime, just like it says add item. You can go to add item, and those items by default are in that list to add back in. So it doesn't
Mhm.
take a lot of effort to go back and add an item that I've deleted. But it does streamline. If I only see it 1 in 20 inspections or 30 it's not something I want every day. It's just taking up space on my app screen.
There you go. Wonderful example. I love it. This is so cool. I love that you're on this call. So another cool thing that I think a lot of people will like here is the ability to go in and set certain things as inspected to save you time so you're not having to click everything. I know a lot of inspectors will go to a room and, they don't want to say they're pretty good at saying, oh, that's wrong, or that's, a defect. And instead of having to check everything off individually, would it be nice if you were just going in and basically unselecting the things that might have a defect and reporting on it? I'll show you how to do that. So let's say that we'll just select all that. It selects every single inspection item. So when you open it up, most of your things are checked, and then you just simply uncheck or add a comment, because when you add a comment, it actually changes the status automatically as well. So I've
Can
got
I,
all these.
can I,
Yeah,
go ahead,
go
go
for
ahead.
it. Oh, so I've got all these selected here, and then I can go to status, and I can also choose a couple other options. So satisfactory. Maybe some of them are not applicable. Not applicable will not show in the report. So let's say that I don't know, you're new. I see this a lot with people who are testing out WebWriter. They basically will complete a report, but there'll be a lot of items that will stay not tested. And it's not like they didn't test them, it's just not part of their inspection, but they didn't get around to deleting it when they were experimenting or what have you. But you can actually go here and check all these off, and you can just say not applicable. It won't show on the final report, but it's still there for you, so you can add it. So that was just one thing I wanted to share. And you can also, if you're a seasoned inspector and you want everything to be satisfactory when you open it up, that's available as well. Darren, what kind of insights do you have from the real world?
Okay, so first of all, we're in template. So this is when you open up your app and create an inspection, what you do in here is what the status is going to show in there. And that's
Mhm.
important. But
Mhm.
this same option is available. I don't even know if it's in the app.
Let
Is
me
it on
check.
it too?
I'm not in the app as much, but I would imagine it would be. I'm going to check right
I
now.
don't ever do this in the app. So I'll tell you my workflow to speed things up. Um, if you find a concern, and say you're just like, I always include unit photos of my HVAC. So I go in, I take a picture, I add the concern unit photo, I take a picture with it. It automatically checks the whatever it is, heat pump, air conditioner, furnace, checks it green. And my default status is NA, because if it's NA, it's not going to show up in the report. So anything I lay hands on, if the HVAC has leaking drainage pipe and I write a concern for that, it's going to show up with that concern level. So everything that I touch or add something to automatically changes it from NA, which means it's not in my report, to it's now in my report. Okay. So then looking at your list for roof coverings, I'm going to go up on the roof. If I find no defects, I'm going to take a picture of the roof, several of them, to show them I was on the roof and the condition of the roof. It's going to change from NA to a green check mark. If there's an issue, it's going to change to whatever that level of issue is. That icon will show up. So then we go to roof drainage systems. Well, let's say this house doesn't have any gutters. Of course, my report doesn't have that, but for example here, roof drain systems, it's already defaulted to NA, which means it's not going to show up in the report. The house doesn't have gutters. I don't have to touch it. I don't have to change it from not inspected to inspected or inspected to NA. I don't touch it at all. We go down to roof flashing. A lot of these straight gable roof houses don't have flashings. We might have plumbing penetrations through it. I put those under plumbing vents, under the plumbing section. So again, flashing is NA. I don't have to touch it. If we have flashing and it's bad and I touch it, then it shows that concern level. So what I'm saying is from default in the templates here, I went through and checked that top box that selects all, and then went down to status and selected NA. So when I open my report by default, nothing in my report is going to show up. Nothing in this template is going to show up in my report by default until I touch it. So after I'm done doing my inspection, everything that I've touched and reported on shows up in there. And I go to the other items and say, maybe we had gutters and they were fine and I had nothing to say. So that's still showing NA. I'll check those items. Did you look in the app to see if we can check?
Yeah, you can. Yep. So the app
Okay.
does do this as well, where you can select all.
And I'll select the ones that I did see. Those items did exist and they were in good condition. There was nothing to report. I select those things and go down to status and put satisfactory. So I don't have to check and uncheck everything as I go. Everything starts as NA. Anything that I inspect shows up with a status. Anything that after I'm done, sometimes after I leave the site, I'll preview it and go through. And so those who haven't used WebWriter, once you go through and select those items and say they were satisfactory because they were on site, but they didn't have a condition to report on. So you're just saying, yes, they're satisfactory. Everything else is still left NA. So from the browser side of actually working on the report, there's a button up top or a checkbox that says hide all NA. So what that does is disappears them in your view, and you can go back through the rest of them and add any descriptors or materials or anything like that. And you're only looking at the ones that you actually said were there on site. So by starting default NA and then moving to what's been inspected is a lot faster workflow. And you're not flipping through all these things that you don't need to look at that weren't on site. Does that make sense?
There you go. That's great. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love that you said that you shared that with everybody. Something that I've noticed is like just seeing a lot of people with a lot of these, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot to change.
It's
And
all
then
that shows up, and
yeah,
people are wondering, why didn't you inspect that? So
yes,
for me,
exactly.
if I say I didn't inspect something, there's a reason why, and I'm putting a disclaimer in there saying this is why I didn't inspect it. So not inspected by default means I have to go through and touch every one of those items and change it to something else.
I agree with you. And other folks probably would like to do this tip as well, is just go into your template right now, and just that's one thing to check off the list there, is to kind of set yourself up for a little bit of speed and to not have something show up that's not supposed to and have people question it. Just go in and check everything, and then go down here to the bottom and click status and then do NA. And it will help out with speeding up the process of report writing. And I love your system of how you basically go through anything that has a comment or a picture, the status changes automatically, and then going through to the other items that don't have a status or a picture and being able to change that to satisfactory, that was there on site. I will share a little bit about locations too while it's here. This is something that when I've been using WebWriter, and I don't lean towards using this to identify a specific location to a client. Honestly, I put that visible in the comment because it can be very, detailed. You're trying to describe something that's on the left side of the exterior wall, or, you're trying to really pinpoint a location. But this right here.
I personally don't like locations.
Okay.
I have removed all of them for the simple reason that, locations of ductwork. Ductwork can be anywhere in the house. You don't typically see it in a bedroom, but I have seen ductwork in bedrooms, older houses, rigid ducts passing through bedrooms and the ceilings. A better example would be though, like for say smoke detector. You're going to have those in several rooms, but not every house is going to have them in the same rooms. And then when you say, hey, I have an issue with the smoke detector missing in the hallway, but it's then tagged with all these other rooms, I don't want it tagged with those other rooms because I'm telling you there's an issue with the one in the hallway. And so then it gets a
Yeah.
little confusing when you're saying it's in this item exists in multiple locations, but I'm telling you there's only the other ones are fine. This one has an issue in this room, but then it's tagged with the other rooms. I would rather have an annotation with a photo of where this item is located than have locations. But I know also that they are working to make locations a more useful tool. This is sort of the beginning stages of implementing locations into the software. So right in its current stage, it's not something I really like to use. Manufactured homes here, so we have no attic. Um, by default, it definitely wouldn't have those things in the attic, like my HVAC venting, my ductwork, um, kitchen bath exhaust. It, that would it's going to go through a space in the roof, but there's no attic. So am I adding this? I mean, so let's say 20% of my inspections are manufactured homes. Do I add it to those 20%? Do I leave it default in all the rest of them? Do I have to remove it for those? It's another workflow I'm adding and removing because the system doesn't exist or does exist depending on the house that I'm in. I guess I could have a separate template. That might work. That's what templates are for, right?
Yeah.
Um, and and a lot of this is kind of new, so I'm thinking through this with you. But in the fact that we can add a new template is a rather new um, adjustment to the software. When you're busy, I want to get in and out. I don't want to be fiddling with the software. So I've just found that my current workflow is just to remove these. I do get where it could come in handy.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about it a little more.
No, I mean, I'm totally with you. I'm like 100% on the same page. Like I suggest just by default, I think everybody should remove locations until you find a way or a certain scenario where you make locations work for you to speed things up. And it might be very situational, and you have to know that the print preview that your clients see will have a little location kind of marker. So make sure before you jump into using locations to do a print preview and test it out and see what it looks like to the buyer, because you definitely don't want to have any confusion. So and the way to remove all these locations, you can just do the select all and then do remove locations, and they'll get removed from that area. Here we can just do the same thing here, remove. And that's just a way to play it safe until you figure out how and if you want to use locations. And, for the most part, that's just basically how you set up the structure of templates. And now you can move into working on your library, and your library is what feeds into the templates. I'll go over here to library on the left. When I was in a roof, you notice that I was in the roof area, and I added roof drainage systems, roof penetrations. I've added these two, but I didn't really build out the details. So this is where you would do that. You would add your comments and things like that. I did kind of skip over here, but at the top of the library, you do have your spot where you can add to your property descriptions, your complete property disclaimers, or your standards of practice that you would have in the beginning of the report. They would be here. And it's pretty kind of self-explanatory of how to work on the library. I think it's pretty intuitive, but you click on descriptions. And then over here, you can modify by clicking edit. So let's say present during inspection. I can click that and I can see all the different things that I've got listed here. So I've got buyer, buyer's agent, HVAC tech, pest, seller, tenant. Maybe I want to add a septic person. So I just click that and click the orange arrow, and it includes another option. There's an option down here where you can set a default. So maybe for this, it wouldn't really apply because you never know who's going to be there. So you can go ahead and change anything. You can set something as default for future reports every time you open up the template.
So go back into edit on one of them. Something that's got a
Sure.
list.
So style of home, there's a lot.
Yes, adding a new style on the bottom. Maybe it's just me, the intuitiveness of this, but so that orange arrow, the enter new is orange, the line below it is orange. Those are like static things. And when I look at that orange arrow, I think that's static. So I type something in, and about first dozen times I did it, I'd hit the X to close it, like, okay, I'm done. X done.
Mm.
And then it didn't show up because I'm thinking all that orange is static. But that return sign in the orange is key. You've got to hit that or it's not going to show up. I'm just for those that think the same way I do. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, Susie, but the color
Yeah.
coding on it was static with everything else on the page. It was not something that you would think would have a reaction.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. That I've been testing this out for a while now that I kind of forgot about that, but that was something that I remember from the way beginning. You just reminded me. I did type something in and then I would hit save and then I'm like, why didn't it save? And so that is such a great call out, and I'm
Yeah, you've
so
got
happy
to
you
hit that.
remembered that. Yeah, so you can't just go test and then hit save and then you go back and you're like, why didn't that save? I remember specifically being confused by that a long time ago.
See, you think the same way I do.
Yeah, I guess so. but yeah, so you'll go, and I remember doing it a bunch. So you'll go in here, add option, new option, hit the orange arrow, and then go down to the bottom, hit save, and it will show up. But you can clean up this whole kind of list here and customize it to what you want. And that's your total library. The template can be even more adjusted after that. For disclaimers, same kind of thing. You just click create new. And I don't know, I would probably put in my total SOP here. So when I didn't need to start a report, I just had to add the one comment. So when we get into the actual library here, when I was in, where did it go? The roof, and I've got, where did it go? Let's see here. So if I'm in the roof system, and let me refresh this real quick. Second here. Maybe I didn't save my work. Roof system, roof covering, drainage, this. Okay. All right. So there we are. I don't know what just happened here, but I'm in the roof and I will go into roof drainage systems. I always want to click right there, but it's actually these three icons here to get into the details, comments, and disclaimers. So to add and build out roof drainage systems to include different things, I'll click on the little eye there, and this will pop out where I can, let's see here, add and I might say gutter type or something like that, things like that. And then here, when you're building out an item, you have the option to have it just be text, where you could just free type in text. You can also do a yes, no toggle. You can give a list, or you can have a number selection. So just know that there's a couple different answer formats for you. I will go in and do the list. A lot of folks with lists, will want to allow multiple values because there might be different types of materials or types or things like that. I guess gutter type, I don't really know if there's a specific type to a gutter, but let's pretend that there is. So we could say covered, maybe it's one of the covered kinds, that could be a type. And then the kind that's just open. Again, I'm not a home inspector, but hopefully you guys understand and kind of get the gist here. I'll hit save there. I could also, you can pop into any of these and add to it if you like as well. So, oftentimes people will go into here and they want to add more manufacturer names, things like that. It all works the same, so it's pretty easy to get the gist once you're into the template, or in a report, the instructions are also the same. To add a comment to your library, you can just click on it's like a little chat bubble, and it will have a number which lists the amount of comments for that specific item. But if you click on that, you can customize this, clear out any comments that don't make sense to you, or you're not into, or you could just use that comment as the base, and you can go ahead and click show details, read all about it. And then if you want to save yourself some time and some of the comment works for you, just click edit comment, and you can customize it and add your own parts of the comment as well. When you're working with comments, we also have some preloaded icons here. They're great because they call attention to the comment. It will also change the rating or the severity in the report. And then one more thing about comments is the summary in the report will get organized in order of priority for you as well. So that's a really cool thing that I like about WebWriter that's definitely not in desktop HomeGauge. So it just kind of automatically puts the most important things up at the top. One more other thing to point out about comments while we're here, this description area, this is the text that will appear in the summary. So if you're not familiar with what a WebWriter report looks like, I encourage you to play around and add some comments and things like that. And you'll notice that the summary is very streamlined. It's a true summary. It's not basically taking the full comment and just repeating it in the summary. It's actually just a very short one-liner. They can click on it and it hyperlinks to the full comment with the pictures in the report. So that's super important. Whatever you want agents and customers to see in the summary, pop it right there in the description, so it's visible to them, but you don't have to go into the full comment. You can actually share that kind of information here. And that's pretty much about it about comments. Darren, do you have any insights on building out comments from your experience?
Watching what you're doing and texting somebody on the team about being able to move comments between items, that's something that is definitely in the works, because a lot of times a comment, say in a heat pump, would be the same comment you might find in an air conditioner. And I'll create it for air conditioner one week, and the next week find a heat pump with that same issue, and then I got to retype the whole thing because I can't move it between. So I know that's in the works also. But creating comments in here, it really is straightforward. It's not really, and it's nice that, like I said, I can create, like I used exterior door and recreated an item and called it sliding glass door. And then I went through those comments that were in there and deleted the ones I didn't want, and then added the few that I wanted for the sliding glass door. So it's a nice process to be able to customize adding items that you want, automatically importing from what's existing under that initial item, and then creating additional concerns.
Yeah. And also to point out too, you don't have to fill out all the different boxes. They're just there to enhance, stick to description, and then they might have their recommendation down here, and their description might be a little bit more fleshed out. So it's up to you how you want to do that. It's totally flexible, and I think it works really well, and it looks really nice in the report too. And it's searchable, so it's really cool because you can just start typing. The search will filter as you type.
Not
Go ahead.
accustomed to using WebWriter. Everything she's doing shows up in the app in the browser. So, like when I'm putting a comment in quick, I know that fungal growth is under joists and a couple other areas, but I can type FUNG up top quick and it pops those areas up and I can go straight to it instead of having to navigate down to where it is. It doesn't make it faster when you're on site to be able to get to an item.
So, and then here too, so each item has a item-wide disclaimer or limitation. So specific just to cooktop. If you click on the little hand, that's like, whoa, something, that's what that means. So if you click on that, you'll get your item specific disclaimers that you can customize and add. But yeah, so each item has their details, comments, disclaimers. You got your system-wide disclaimer. Pretty easy to navigate. Just expand. Yeah, and so that kind of wraps it up. It's easy to catch on to because unlike HomeGauge, it's not you don't have one desktop version and then the companion, everything in the instructions are all pretty much the same. The library you can add to in the app. The template, you do want to be in the browser like Darren brought up in the beginning, but you can actually log in on your browser, on your phone or your tablet if you want to, and you really do feel like making template changes. I mean, if you're not limited, you can just go to homegauge.com, log in, and go to WebWriter, and you're there. It's just the standalone app that is nice for speed because it doesn't need data connection and things like that. That is doesn't have this little template at the bottom. So just be aware of that. I will open this up to any questions. I know we're past one, so everybody who hung on, I'm super excited that you did. Any questions for me, Darren, because he's co-hosting with me, which is awesome. Thank you, Darren, so much. You are wonderful, and I'm so grateful for that. I learned a lot. Hopefully, everybody else did too.
Yeah, I have a question. This specific for home inspections, how can you get to the same thing using WebWriter for RV inspections?
It's not quite ready for that yet because there's just a lot more to get added.
So there's just one not available at this time using the WebWriter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Suzie, last question.
Oh yeah, sure.
We got Jim up there waving his hand too.
Okay. Hey Jim, I didn't see you're on a different monitor, so I didn't see you.
How do we select the template at the creation of is it at the creation inspection? Is it in the app?
It is right here. So if you're in inspection, and depending on how you do this, so if we go to add inspection, you'll have the option down here to add your other templates. So if I go to the dashboard and I go to new appointment and choose an address. There we go. So it's pretty easy to create an appointment. So anybody who wants to do that, it's really easy to do. So just in that step, I've gone through and I've created my appointment, set an agreement, and I've also set an invoice where people can pay. And where did it go? I did it for 9 p.m. So it's going to be a pretty dark inspection. If I go here and I click on that, I can choose this plus sign to create a web inspection. And when I click on that, we'll get brought over here. Gives me the choice of going to whatever template that I wanted to use.
I've not seen that happen before, so maybe that's new because I created another template. Maybe it doesn't show up if you don't have more than one template.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't. It just goes to the default. But yeah. So it does that. And good question, because I kind of forgot about that one. So way to round it out. So that's how you do it if you're using appointments, or if you're just kind of starting from scratch. It's all the way down here at the bottom, and you choose what one if you have multiples. If you just have the one default, you don't need to choose.
Do you know if we add it on the app? Because I know the ability is there now to add an inspection at the site. Point of creating it is going to ask you what template is. I've never had to do that.
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
It's there. It's same spot. It looks exactly the same as this workflow right here. So if you're on the app, it looks exactly the same. It's got the choose your template if you have multiples.
Okay.
All good questions. So cool. All right, folks. Well, again, I bid you adieu. Enjoy your day. And I hope to see you again on another Lunch and Learn.